Welcome everybody to the Captain Spot. I'm your host Justin Freeman. 6 foot 1 inches, 274 pounds, fantasy knowledge. And it's Monday, guys. You know what that means. You're finding us right here on the Mayo Media Network for a little Monday night showdown. It's week 8. That means we're talking about Bucks at Giants. Tom Brady versus Daniel Jones, two of the all-time greats. Maybe not two of the all-time greats, maybe just one. So this looks like it'll be a pretty one-sided affair according to Vegas. We're talking about a game with a 45-point total. Bucks favored by 12.5 points. This looks like it'll pretty much be all Brady and company, but there are a handful of injuries we need to make sure we are aware of. On the Tampa side of the football, it's pretty much Chris Godwin. He's out this week. We will not have Godwin. So that's going to be slight bumps and targets for really everybody in the entire offense, from Mike Evans, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller, Justin Watson. The list goes on and on there for Tampa. And then on the New York side, the big injury is Devonta Freeman, who will not be playing in this game. That means Wayne Gallman, Dion Lewis, both going to be thrust into more prominent roles in the offense. But we haven't seen that run game be, a super strong asset for the Giants heretofore. So we're going to have to figure out exactly how we're going to play this slate. Now, at 12.5 point spread, Vegas is being pretty demonstrative in saying, where the points are coming from in this game. It's going to come from the Tampa Bay side of the football. So we're going to have to get, really certain on how we are going to attack that. And this is actually going to be a really difficult game to project because there's a lot of uncertainty across the board in this game. And, that could probably dilute ownership down quite a bit and make it a really interesting slate to play if you feel like you actually have takes that you want to solidify and put your name behind. This will be a good sort of like state your case type of slate for sure. So why don't we start by talking through the Tampa Bay situation where, Mike Evans is going to be the most talented receiver left on the roster without Chris Godwin out there. And we just haven't seen the same Mike Evans so far this year. So can he justify that salary that we're seeing for him? He and Tom Brady going to be the two most expensive pieces of this Tampa Bay offense without Godwin. And so, we've only seen Mike Evans garner 5% and 7% of targets over the last 2 weeks. Simply not good enough for a wide receiver one usage at that price point. However, we've seen Godwin, when Godwin has missed time, Evans has tended to rise to the occasion. But something just doesn't quite look right with Evans, and it's showing up in his usage. He's on the field a lot, and he's not getting targeted, and we've not seen that before with Mike Evans. And you could chalk that up to rapport with Brady or something like that, but I have a feeling that there's actually a significant injury that Mike Evans is playing through. And each and every year we find a couple guys who we learn after the fact that they had been playing an entire season with some sort of nagging injury that just wouldn't go away and doesn't rise to the level of being on the injury report because they know they're going to play. But maybe Mike Evans is dealing with something, because he should be getting more work than he's getting in terms of targets. We know he's a talented player. So, trying to figure out what exactly he will do now that Chris Godwin is out of the lineup becomes really interesting. Well, we don't have to look too far. We can see what they've done in the past. Evans has averaged only 15% of the team's targets this year. But if we look at the 3 games that Chris Godwin has missed, Evans has 29%, 18%, 22% of the team's targets. And so that is much more in line with the Mike Evans that we all know. It's not the 7%, 5%, 11%, 14% that he's had with Godwin. So we're having some pretty big Mike Evans, Chris Godwin splits when Godwin's on and off the field. So I think we can project a little bit of volume there with Evans, but overall, I'll just caveat emptor, buyer beware, right? Make sure that you know that the floor could be really, really low with Evans as well. Then trying to figure out what the rest of that receiving core is going to look like could be a little bit of trouble as well, because we've seen that look different ways at different times when Chris Godwin has missed time. Most recently, it was the Tyler Johnson show. You may recall that Week 5 game where Tyler Johnson just sort of came on the scene out of nowhere and was just heavily targeted throughout that game. It could be another case where we're seeing Tyler Johnson on repeat. He may be the guy who just sort of most naturally fits that Chris Godwin role. But the other guys to consider there are going to be Scotty Miller and Justin Watson in that order. Matter of fact, I think you can just sort of cast Watson out of the rotation at this point. I think it's going to be a Mike Evans, Tyler Johnson, Scotty Miller rotation for the most part there in Tampa. I would not lean heavily on Justin Watson, who hasn't seen a target, I believe, since week 4. So overall, I think he's somebody we can just sort of throw in the trash heap at this point. But you got to consider the tight end position for Tampa Bay. Rob Gronkowski, a guy who's getting more and more involved in this offense as sort of Mike Evans has been phased out in the last 2 weeks. Gronk has been featured 30% and 20% of the team's targets over the last 2 weeks. Certainly makes him viable for sure. And then Cameron Brate, Tanner Hudson, a couple guys who are getting mixed in a little bit. Starting to see declining usage for each of those guys. And so, overall, I think we're going to want to stay away from Brate and Hudson. They could pay off with a touchdown, but I think you just hold your nose and try to fade those guys and stick to some of the other ways to make your lineup different. And one of those is going to be by making a stand in the backfield here between Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette and trying to figure out how you want to approach that situation. Last week, Fournette's first week back, 44% of the team's snaps for Leonard Fournette compared to 52% for Ronald Jones. So they're split time somewhat evenly there. Excuse me, that was not snaps, that was rush attempts. The snaps were actually in favor of Leonard Fournette, 56 to 43%. So you came in and saw Leonard Fournette take the rushing attempt market share right off the bat. He's pretty much always going to be more involved in the passing game so long as he's active. He took 17% of the team's targets last week. So super, super involved. And now what do you do projecting forward can be a little tough to figure out. And then think about the context of this game. If it got out of hand, would one of those two guys be more likely to continue? We're probably getting LaShawn McCoy back this week. He is not on the injury report. So if we get LaShawn McCoy back, then that could be limited snaps for Leonard Fournette a little bit there in the passing game. So it may be that Ronald Jones has the more projectable line moving forward and has that sort of, most likely to be the rushing leader, I would assume, in this game. On the Giants side of the football, obviously Daniel Jones going to carry a big price tag at the quarterback position, and you can certainly justify playing him. I think in this sort of roster construction, we're talking about a 12.5-point Vegas spread. You got to be thinking heavy builds in favor of the Bucs side of the football. 4-2 Bucs builds, with 4 Bucs and 2 Giants, or 5-1 even. And then if you're thinking 5-1, you got to be really interested in trying to nail that one person from the Giants side. And could it be Daniel Jones, or would it be more likely to actually be one of his pass catchers? I think that's an interesting thing to try to figure out. Overall, I think Jones can certainly pay off. You just need, you just need him to have a reasonably good game. We know this Buck defense is stout against the run, but you can throw on these guys. So if Daniel Jones can sort of get loose and break perimeter, break the pocket, possibly he could pay off that way. We're talking about Wayne Gallman being sort of the feature back here now for the Giants this week with Devonta Freeman out. I just don't know that you can play Wayne Gallman. He's not a talented player, and he's going up against the toughest run defense in football. I think he's just sort of a stay-away play. At the tight end position, obviously Evan Engram, plus the 3 wide set there for the Giants. Slayton, Tate, and Shepard. I think those are sort of the only guys that you can consider. I would not go super deep on the Giant side of the football. I get the urge to want to, play a CJ Board or to play a Levine, Toilolo, Caden Smith type of player, but I just don't think you need to go that deep on a slate where pricing is not going to be super impactful. I think you're going to want to get unique in other ways by maybe like featuring a Tampa Bay, second-tier Tampa Bay receiver, or making a stand on Fournette versus Ronald Jones, that sort of thing that I think can pay off. Or playing both those guys in the same lineup, I think is an interesting way to do it. So overall, I want to just sort of, incentivize you to focus on, Sterling Shepard, Golden Tate, Darius Slayton. What's most likely to happen there? Well, in our first week with Sterling Shepard back, he took a commanding lead of targets, 28%, doubled up Darius Slayton's 14%, and quadrupled up Golden Tate, 7% of team targets. The rest went to Evan Engram. So Evan Engram got a lot of run last week, and I think Evan Engram makes for a really interesting play this week. If you're doing a 5-1, I think Evan Engram's actually one of those guys you can consider being the one over there on the New York side. So overall, guys, it's an interesting slate. You're going to have to try to figure out, make some key stands across the board. Let's look at our captain assignments by player, and it's Tom Brady. We never get this, guys, where there's a quarterback captain as the preference. But Tom Brady makes so much sense in this particular build where we're talking about, a team that spreads the ball out a ton. Like, if we thought that Brady was just going to be zeroing in on one particular receiver over and over and over again, there's no chance Brady would be the leading captain. But here we are. He's going to, just sprinkle the ball a little bit everywhere. He's going to give a little bit to Gronk, a little bit to Mike Evans, a little bit to Tyler Johnson, a little bit to the running backs. And that makes Brady a really viable play at the captain spot. So this is very unusual. Usually don't recommend captains being at the quarterback position, but Tom Brady will be the guy this week that we recommend. Mike Evans comes in second despite his limited role. Daniel Jones third. So another high-ranking quarterback captain, and very similar situation there on the Giants side where there's not a lot of projectability in terms of where those targets are going to go. Daniel Jones himself, especially with the rushing floor that Jones has, and showed that a little bit kind of last week on his stumbling way onto like a 90-yard breakoff. But Daniel Jones had he continues to have a pretty solid rushing floor each and every week. After that, it's Ronald Jones. And then, I think even Wayne Gallman may be too high on this given the strength of that defense over in Tampa Bay. As we look at our lineup appearances, this is going to include our flex. We're talking about Tom Brady and Daniel Jones, sort of the locked-in top two options. As much as you may hate Daniel Jones, he still accumulates fantasy points. Make sure you have those two guys in your lineup, followed by Mike Evans. And then the running backs, Wayne Gallman, Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette. And as I mentioned, there's a really low floor that exists for Wayne Gallman, so proceed with caution there. Otherwise, he will tilt you into oblivion, guys. So overall, that's going to do it for us this week, guys. Make sure that you are subscribed right here on Mayo Media Network. Subscribe on the Captain Spot YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheCPT Spot. I'm Justin Freeman. Follow me on Twitter at JustinFreeman18. We'll see you guys next week.